Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. We Toldemort'd the NIGMA Empire, they should have listened. They came without warning, their massive ships darkening the skies over every major city on Earth. The Viridian Collective, a species we had never encountered before, arrived with technology centuries beyond our own. Their ships, sleek crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them, positioned themselves in perfect formation above our planet. For 3 days, they simply watched. Commander Talia Bishop stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, her eyes fixed on the main display showing Earth below. The Viridian ships formed a net around the planet, pulsing with an eerie blue light that scientists still couldn't explain. Her knuckles whitened as she gripped the railing. "Any response to our communications?" she asked, not turning to face Lieutenant Javier Ortiz, who stood behind her, tablet in hand. "Nothing, Commander. We've tried every frequency, every language pattern in our database. They're receiving our signals, but they're choosing not to respond." Talia nodded slowly. In her 20 years with Earth Defense, she'd prepared for first contact scenarios, but nothing like this, silent, overwhelming, and terrifying in its precision. "What about the diplomatic envoys?" Javier's silence told her everything. The shuttle carrying Earth's representatives had been vaporized the moment it approached the nearest Viridian vessel. 500 million people watched it happen during the global broadcast, a demonstration so casual it felt like an afterthought. "The Security Council is meeting in 30 minutes, Javier finally said. "General Franklin wants you there." The Lunar Security Council chamber was buried deep beneath the surface, designed to withstand any known weapon. Talia found it ironic. They'd built it to protect against threats they understood, not crystalline ships that defied physics. General Emerson Franklin, a weathered man with eyes that had seen too many conflicts, stood at the head of the table. Holographic displays showed real-time movements of the Viridian ships, each one perfectly still except for the pulsing light. "They're scanning us," announced Dr. Hendricks, the lead xenobiologist. "Every frequency, every spectrum. They're creating a complete map of our infrastructure, our defense systems, our population centers." "For what purpose?" asked Representative Quaim from the African Union. "To decide where to strike first," Talia said, her voice cutting through the tension. All eyes turned to her. "This isn't a diplomatic mission, it's reconnaissance." General Franklin's jaw tightened. "You have evidence to support this claim, Commander." Talia stepped forward and placed a small data drive on the table. 3 months ago, our deep space monitoring station at Callisto picked up unusual signals. We thought they were background radiation until yesterday, when we ran them through our new quantum decoder. The holographic display shifted, showing complex patterns that slowly resolved into recognizable images. Schematics of Earth cities, military installations, power grids. "They've been watching us for years," Talia continued. "These transmissions were sent back to their home system. We've intercepted what appears to be attack plans, targeting strategies. They're not here to talk, they're here to conquer." The room fell silent. Dr. Hendricks was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why, we pose no threat to them." "Resources," said Representative Huang of the Asian Coalition. "Our planet is rich in rare elements, water, biological diversity." "No," Talia shook her head, "it's something else." She accessed another file on the drive. "We've partially decoded some of their communications. They refer to us as the Unbound. They fear us." "Fear us?" General Franklin scoffed. "Look at their technology. They could wipe us out in seconds." "Yes, but they haven't," Talia pointed out. "They're being cautious." And this term, unbound, appears repeatedly in contexts suggesting danger, unpredictability. Dr. Hendricks leaned forward. "Our emotional range, our creativity, our unpredictability. To a hive-mind species like the Viridians appear to be, individualism would be chaos." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Lieutenant Ortiz burst into the room, his face pale. "They've started," he gasped. "Beijing, New Delhi, Lagos, precision strikes on military installations. Casualty reports are coming in." The attacks escalated over the next 72 hours. The Viridians didn't target civilian populations directly, they didn't need to. By destroying power grids, water purification systems, and communication networks, they created chaos that did their work for them. Earth's military response was futile. Fighter jets exploded before getting within firing range. Missile systems failed as their guidance systems were remotely corrupted. Nuclear deterrents remained locked in their silos, somehow rendered inert by Veridian technology. At Luna Base, Commander Bishop worked without sleep, coordinating what remained of Earth's defenses while gathering intelligence on the enemy. It was during her analysis of Veridian communication patterns that she discovered something unusual, a vulnerability. They communicate with a quantum entanglement system, she explained to what remained of the Security Council, now operating from a bunker beneath the lunar surface. That's why we can't intercept most of their transmissions, but the entanglement requires synchronization points, moments when their entire network aligns. During those microseconds, they're vulnerable. General Franklin, his face haggard from days without rest, stared at the data. Vulnerable how? Their shields drop for 3.7 microseconds during synchronization. It's not long, but it might be enough, Talia explained. And we've discovered something else. The Veridians aren't a natural species, they're engineered. Biological drones created by some central intelligence. If we can disrupt that connection, we could turn them against each other, finished Dr. Hendricks. Hope flickered for the first time in days. It wasn't much, a microscopic chance against an overwhelming force, but it was something. And humanity had always excelled at turning microscopic chances into miracles. As the meeting concluded, Talia received an encrypted message from an old friend, Dominic Reed, a brilliant but controversial weapons designer who had been working in a classified facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. The message was brief: Project Thunderfall ready. The Veridians aren't the only ones who can play God. For the first time since the invasion began, Commander Talia Bishop allowed herself to smile. The Veridians had come expecting easy conquest. What they were about to discover was that humans, when cornered, became something else entirely, something even they, with all their advanced technology, couldn't predict. The war for Earth was just beginning. The underwater facility, known as Mariana's Deep, sat 17 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean's surface, so well hidden that not even the Veridian sensors had detected it. Here, in the crushing darkness, Dominic Reed had spent 5 years developing weapons that most of Earth's governments had deemed too dangerous to exist. Dominic stood before the central display, his gaunt face illuminated by the blue glow of holographic projections. At 53, his once dark hair had turned completely gray, but his eyes burned with an intensity that made junior scientists avoid direct eye contact. "Show me the latest telemetry from the orbital sensors," he commanded. Dr. Petronovic, his chief assistant, pulled up the data. The Veridian fleet maintains standard formation. Their attack patterns have become predictable. They strike, withdraw to recharge their energy weapons, then strike again. "Predictable is good," Dominic muttered. "Predictable means exploitable." Their conversation was interrupted by the facility's security alert. Commander Talia Bishop had arrived via the high-speed submarine transport, one of the few modes of travel the Veridians couldn't track. When Talia entered the command center, Dominic noticed immediately how the past week had changed her. Her shoulders carried a new weight, and her eyes held the hollow look of someone who had witnessed too much death. "Dominic," she acknowledged with a nod, "I received your message about Project Thunderfall. General Franklin has authorized me to assess its viability." Instead of answering, Dominic led her through a series of security checkpoints into the heart of the facility. They entered a vast chamber where dozens of scientists worked around a central platform. On it stood a device no larger than a shipping container, its surface covered with intricate circuitry that pulsed with an inner light. "This," Dominic said with unmistakable pride, "is the Echo Protocol." Talia approached the device cautiously. "You've weaponized quantum entanglement." "Better," Dominic replied. "We've learned to hack it. The Veridians use quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication across vast distances. This device creates a cascading disruption in their network, essentially introducing noise that grows exponentially with each transmission." Dr. Novak joined them, adding, "Think of it as a virus that spreads through their communication system. Once deployed, it will create confusion, contradictory orders, and eventually, complete communication breakdown." "How do we deploy it?" Talia asked, already calculating tactical options. "That's the complicated part," Dominic admitted. "It needs to be physically connected to one of their ships during a synchronization point." Talia's brief hope faltered. "So we need to board a Veridian vessel, that's suicide." "Not necessarily," came a voice from behind them. Admiral Wesley Hammond entered the chamber, his uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's Unified Defense Command. Once Talia's mentor, Hammond had been leading resistance operations from hidden bases scattered throughout the solar system. "We've captured something useful," the Admiral continued. "A damaged Viridian scout ship that crashed in the Australian outback. It's small, but its systems are intact enough for our purposes." For the next 48 hours, they worked relentlessly on what seemed like an impossible plan. The captured Viridian ship had yielded valuable insights into their technology, particularly their navigational systems. Combined with Dominic's Echo protocol, they developed Operation Thunderfall, a desperate gambit that risked everything on a single strike. Admiral Hammond addressed the gathered team, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. "The Viridians maintain perfect formation because their ships are linked in a symmetric quantum field. Break one ship's connection, and you create a weak point in the entire network." Talia studied the holographic display showing the planned operation. "We'll use the captured scout ship to approach their command vessel during the next synchronization point. The Echo protocol device will be attached to their hull by a small team, then remotely activated." Once activated, Dominic continued, "the disruption will spread throughout their entire fleet within minutes. Their ships will lose coordination, their weapon systems will target incorrectly, and their shields will fluctuate unpredictably." "And then?" asked one of the younger officers. Admiral Hammond's expression hardened. "Then we hit them with everything we have left." Earth's remaining forces had been gathering in secret, preparing for what might be humanity's final stand. Experimental weapons, prototype fighters hidden in underground hangars, and last-resort nuclear options that had survived the initial Viridian attacks. All would be deployed in a synchronized assault once the Echo protocol activated. The team selected for the mission consisted of 12 specialists, with Talia insisting on leading the operation herself. As they prepared in the staging area, she found Dominic making last-minute adjustments to the Echo device. "You're not coming with us," she stated, observing his trembling hands. Dominic didn't look up from his work. "The device might need manual calibration if their security protocols have evolved. Besides, I've got nothing left to lose. My family was in London when it fell." Talia placed her hand on his shoulder, understanding all too well. Many of them were fighting with similar ghosts driving them forward. "The synchronization point occurs in 14 hours, she said. "Get some rest before then." But rest proved impossible as reports continued to arrive from Earth's surface. The Viridians had begun a new phase of their invasion, landing ground forces for the first time. These weren't the crystalline ships humanity had come to fear, but biological constructs, semi-organic warriors engineered for conquest. Lieutenant Jessica Reeves, their xenobiology expert, reviewed the footage with mounting concern. "They're adapting," she told the mission team during their final briefing. "Creating forms specifically designed for Earth's environment. If we don't stop them now, they'll evolve beyond our capacity to fight them." As the launch time approached, Admiral Hammond addressed the team one final time. "What we do today isn't just about survival," he said, his voice solemn. "It's about who we become in the process. Remember that." The stolen Viridian scout ship hummed with alien energy as they prepared for launch. Its controls had been partially modified for human operation, but much of its technology remained mysterious, requiring Lieutenant Tobias Chen, their systems expert, to interpret its responses. "The ship recognizes me as authorized personnel," Chen reported with cautious optimism. "Their biometric security isn't as sophisticated as we feared." As they launched from Marianas deep into the open ocean, then skyward toward the Viridian fleet, Talia felt an unexpected calm settle over her. The odds against their success were astronomical, yet something about facing such impossible circumstances brought clarity. The captured ship rose through Earth's atmosphere, its adaptive camouflage mimicking the energy signature of returning Viridian scouts. Lieutenant Chen guided it expertly through the lower ranks of the fleet, using predetermined blind spots in their sensor network. 3 minutes to synchronization, Dominic announced, monitoring the quantum fluctuations that preceded the fleet-wide communication event. As they approached the massive command vessel, a structure that dwarfed their scout ship like a whale beside a minnow, alarms suddenly blared throughout their craft. "They've detected the irregularity in our signature," Chen reported, fingers dancing across alien controls. "Defensive systems activating." "Evasive maneuvers," Talia ordered, Get us close enough to deploy. The scout ship lurched as Chen pushed its capabilities to their limit, narrowly avoiding energy beams that lanced out from the command vessel's surface. They spiraled closer, taking minor hits that sent cascades of electrical discharges through their systems. 1 minute to synchronization, Dominic called out, bracing himself as the ship shuddered under another impact. We'll never get close enough for physical contact, Lieutenant Reeves shouted over the alarms. Talia made a split-second decision. Prepare to eject the Echo device. Chen set collision course for the command ship's central node. Understanding dawned on their faces. The plan had changed. They would ram the scout ship directly into the Viridian command vessel, using the impact to deliver the Echo protocol. 30 seconds, Dominic announced, his fingers finalizing the device's activation sequence. Everyone to the escape pods, Talia ordered. When Dominic didn't move, she added, that includes you, Reed. He looked up, a sad smile crossing his face. The device needs to be manually triggered at the exact moment of synchronization. Someone has to stay. Before Talia could protest, Admiral Hammond stepped forward. No, this is my responsibility. Get your people out, Commander, that's an order. As the escape pods jettisoned from the doomed scout ship, Talia watched through the viewport as their vessel accelerated toward the massive Viridian command ship. The last transmission from Admiral Hammond was brief. Remember who we are. The impact when it came was blinding, a fusion of Earth and Viridian technology creating a cascade of energy that rippled visibly through the enemy fleet. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like dominoes falling in slow motion, the perfect formation began to falter. Ship by ship, the Viridians lost their synchronization. Some fired on their own vessels, others drifted aimlessly, their guidance systems corrupted by the Echo protocol's spreading infection. The magnificent order that had made them so terrifying dissolved into chaos. From hidden bases around Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity launched its counterattack. Fighter squadrons emerged from underground hangars, targeting the now vulnerable Viridian ships. Experimental weapons that had been deemed too dangerous in peacetime found their purpose in this desperate hour. As Talia's escape pod was recovered by an Earth defense vessel, she watched the battle unfold with a mixture of hope and dread. They had created a chance where none existed before, but at what cost to humanity's soul? The answer would come soon enough. For now, they fought with the fury of a species that refused to be extinguished. The stars looked different now. Talia stood at the viewport of the EDS Resilience, watching as debris from Viridian vessels scattered across Earth's orbit like a new constellation, one born of violence rather than cosmic patience. 3 weeks had passed since Operation Thunderfall, and humanity's counterattack had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Commander, you're needed in the war room, Lieutenant Reeves announced from behind her. Talia nodded without turning. The title felt hollow now, commander of what exactly? She'd led a mission that turned the tide, but at a cost few had anticipated. Admiral Hammond's sacrifice was only the beginning. The war room buzzed with activity as tactical officers tracked the remaining Viridian forces. What had once been an overwhelming invasion fleet was now reduced to isolated pockets of resistance, their coordination shattered by the Echo protocol. General Franklin greeted her with a curt nod. Our forces have secured the Viridian ground base in what used to be northern Brazil. The enemy combatants are changing. He pulled up footage on the main display. It showed Viridian soldiers, once disciplined and synchronized in their movements, now wandering aimlessly, some even fighting amongst themselves. Without the central control signal, they're devolving, explained Dr. Novik, who had taken over research operations after Dominic's injury during their escape. The Echo protocol didn't just disrupt their communications, it severed their connection to whatever intelligence was controlling them. They're becoming individuals, Talia realized. And they don't know how to handle it, General Franklin added grimly. Some are surrendering, others are becoming more violent, more unpredictable. The strategic implications were enormous. What had been a coordinated invasion force was transforming into scattered groups of confused alien entities. It made cleanup operations easier in some ways, but introduced new ethical dilemmas. We've captured their command structure, continued Franklin, including this one. The display changed to show a containment cell where a Viridian being unlike the others sat motionless. While most Viridians resembled living crystalline structures with vaguely humanoid forms, this one was larger, more complex. with patterns of light pulsing beneath its translucent skin. Archon Korath, Franklin stated. At least that's what our translators have pieced together. He appears to be their equivalent of a fleet admiral. Has he communicated? Talia asked. Refused so far, that's why you're here. He's asking for you specifically, the architect of their downfall, as he put it. Talia felt a chill. How does he know who I am? They know more about us than we realized, Dr. Novik interjected. They studied us for years before attacking. That's partly why they feared us so much. The containment facility had been specially constructed to hold Viridian prisoners. Fields that neutralized their natural energy manipulation abilities surrounded each cell, while environmental controls maintained the precise conditions their biology required. Archon Korath's chamber was larger than the others, its walls lined with sensors monitoring every fluctuation in his crystalline form. When Talia entered, he remained seated, his faceted head tilted slightly as if in curiosity. You have questions, the Archon stated, his voice translated through speakers. The sound was surprisingly melodic, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Why did you attack us? Talia asked directly. Preemptive action, your species represents an unacceptable variable. Because we're unpredictable. Because you're dangerous, Korath corrected. We encountered your transmissions first, your stories, your entertainment broadcasts. We thought they were historical records. Records of beings who transform into monsters under stress, who wage war against themselves, who sacrifice individuals for collective survival. Despite herself, Talia felt a flash of dark amusement. You were frightened by our fiction. We were terrified by your imagination, Korath countered. No species we've encountered conceives of such violence, such chaos, much less glorifies it. Then we studied your actual history and found it equally disturbing. You fight when there is no logical reason to fight. You survive when survival is mathematically impossible. You create weapons that could destroy yourselves. Talia considered this, so you decided to exterminate us before we could become a real threat. The collective exists in perfect harmony. Your existence threatens that harmony. The logical solution was removal. And now, Talia gestured to the containment field. Your collective is shattered, your soldiers are becoming individuals. What's the logical solution now? For the first time, Korath's crystalline form dimmed slightly. Unknown, this state separation was considered theoretical only, a nightmare scenario. As Talia left the containment facility, she found Dominic waiting, his arm in a regenerative sling, a souvenir from their narrow escape. His expression was troubled. You heard, she asked. Enough, he replied. They tried to destroy us because they feared what we might become. There's a certain irony in that. Talia understood his meaning. In the weeks since the Echo Protocol's deployment, Earth's military had undergone rapid transformation. New weapons were being developed based on captured Viridian technology. Security protocols had tightened worldwide. The Unified Defense Command that had formed in crisis was now consolidating power in ways that would have been unthinkable before the invasion. General Franklin has authorized the vivisection of captured Viridians, Dominic said quietly, for research purposes. Talia stopped walking. They're sentient beings. They're the enemy who tried to exterminate us, Dominic countered, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced by his own argument. Franklin says understanding their biology is critical to preventing future threats. Is that who we are now? Talia asked. Is that what Hammond died for? The question hung between them, unanswerable in the moment. The following days brought a cascade of decisions that would shape humanity's future. With the immediate Viridian threat contained, attention turned to recovery, and to the question of what to do with the survivors of the invasion force. A coalition of scientists, led by Dr. Novik, advocated for establishing communication and potentially rehabilitation. They're becoming individuals, she argued during a contentious council meeting. They're experiencing emotion, confusion, even creativity for the first time. We have a unique opportunity to transform an enemy into something else. Others, particularly military leaders who had witnessed the devastation firsthand, pushed for more aggressive measures. These creatures came to exterminate us, General Franklin reminded the council. Their technology is still centuries beyond ours. Every survivor represents a potential threat. The debate raged across what remained of global communication networks. Humanity, having faced extinction, now grappled with defining itself in victory. Would they embrace mercy or vengeance, caution, or paranoia. Talia found herself increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of these conversations. During a private moment with Dr. Novik, she confessed her concerns. "We're starting to sound like them," she said. "Calculating threats, eliminating variables, prioritizing security above all else." "Fear does that," Novik replied. "It transforms you into what you fear most." Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. At a detention facility in former New Zealand, Veridian prisoners had somehow neutralized their containment fields. Instead of attempting escape, however, they had formed a circle and established some kind of energy connection. By the time Talia arrived with a response team, the situation had been contained, but not before the facility's sensors recorded something remarkable. The Veridians had been creating. "It's art," Dr. Novik explained, showing Talia the crystalline structure the prisoners had formed. Crude by their standards perhaps, but definitively aesthetic rather than functional. They're expressing something. The discovery spread quickly through scientific channels. Other Veridian detainees began showing similar behaviors, creating structures, producing harmonic resonances that researchers identified as rudimentary music, even attempting to communicate in ways beyond military necessity. "They're evolving," Dominic observed during a briefing. "Without the collective controlling them, they're developing individual consciousness. It's happening faster than anyone predicted." This development split opinion even further. Some saw it as proof that coexistence might be possible. Others viewed it as a dangerous new phase of Veridian adaptation that could pose unforeseen threats. Archon Korath requested another meeting with Talia. When she entered his chamber, she found him standing for the first time, his crystalline body refracting light in patterns she hadn't seen before. "Your Echo protocol did more than disrupt our communication," he stated without preamble. "It severed our connection to the source, the central intelligence that guided the collective for millennia." "Is that what controlled your people?" Talia asked. "Controlled, guided, protected." Korath's translated voice carried new inflections, subtle variations that hadn't been present before. "Without it, we are experiencing chaos, internal chaos." "You mean emotions?" "Primitive, disorganized thought patterns, desires, doubts." The light patterns within Korath's form pulsed erratically. Some find it liberating, others are being driven mad. "And you?" Korath was silent for a moment. "I am uncertain. This state of being contains contradictions I cannot resolve. I see the logic that drove our attack on your world, yet now feel regret. Is that the correct term?" The conversation lasted hours, ranging from philosophical questions about consciousness to practical matters regarding the future of Veridian survivors. When Talia finally emerged, she found General Franklin waiting impatiently. "The Council has reached a decision," he informed her. "The remaining Veridian ships will be disabled and towed to Mars orbit for study. Their personnel will be contained in a special facility on Phobos for research and possible rehabilitation." "And Korath?" Talia asked. "High-security containment on Luna base. He knows too much about their technology and military capabilities to risk anything else." As humanity began the long process of rebuilding, questions of identity loomed large. The resistance that had united Earth against the Veridian threat was evolving into something else, a hardened, vigilant force preparing for future conflicts. New defense systems were being constructed in orbit, using principles reverse-engineered from captured Veridian technology. Dominic's research team had expanded, with unlimited funding to develop weapons based on quantum entanglement. "The next threat might not give us time to prepare," he explained when Talia questioned the aggressive timeline. "We need to be ready." Those words, "we need to be ready," echoed across reconstruction efforts worldwide. Cities were rebuilt with defensive capabilities integrated into their design. Education systems were revised to emphasize scientific and military preparedness. The unified Earth government, formed in crisis, solidified its authority with security as its mandate. 6 months after Operation Thunderfall, Talia attended a ceremony commemorating the victory. As she watched Earth's new leaders speak of vigilance, strength, and humanity's rightful place among the stars, she couldn't help but recall Korath's words. "We attacked because we feared what you might become." Looking at the militarized society emerging from the ashes of invasion, Talia wondered if the Veridians had seen something in humanity that humans themselves were only now beginning to recognize. a capacity for transformation that cut both ways, creating heroes and monsters with equal facility. The war was over. The reckoning had just begun. 2 years after Operation Thunderfall, Earth had transformed beyond recognition. Cities once reduced to rubble now stood as gleaming fortresses, their architecture designed not just for living but for defense. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons systems derived from Viridian technology, constantly scanning the depths of space for potential threats. Imani Carter moved through the crowded streets of New Santiago, her military-grade identification chip granting her access through security checkpoints that divided the city into carefully monitored zones. As a former resistance fighter now serving in Earth's intelligence division, she had clearance most civilians could only dream of, though such clearance came with constant surveillance. Her destination was a nondescript building in Sector 7, one of many research facilities that had sprung up since the war. This particular one specialized in communications technology, though rumors suggested its actual purpose was far more classified. Officer Carter, the security AI acknowledged as she approached, voice and retinal confirmation required. After completing the extensive security protocols, Imani was escorted to a subterranean level where Dr. Elijah Quinn waited. Once Dominic Reed's most promising protege, Quinn had risen quickly through the ranks of Earth's scientific elite after developing several key adaptations of Viridian technology. "You're late," Quinn observed without looking up from his workstation. "Security gets tighter every week," Imani replied. "What's so urgent?" Quinn glanced around before activating a localized signal jammer. "I found something while analyzing deep space transmissions, something that shouldn't exist." He pulled up a holographic display showing wavelength patterns that Imani immediately recognized as quantum signatures similar to those used by the Viridians. "Another invasion?" she asked, tensing. "No, that's what's strange. It's not coming from outside our solar system, it's originating from Mars." Imani frowned. The containment facility, could some of the prisoners be communicating? "Impossible, the dampening fields prevent any quantum manipulation." Quinn lowered his voice further. "I think it's coming from us, from Earth Defense Command." The implications were troubling. After the war, the study of Viridian technology had been compartmentalized, with different research teams working on isolated aspects under strict security. If Quinn was right, someone had secretly developed quantum communication capabilities beyond official oversight. "Who have you told about this?" Imani asked. "Just you, I don't know who to trust anymore." Quinn's eyes showed the strain of sleepless nights. "The Defense Council is changing. General Franklin's faction is pushing for something called the Preemptive Security Initiative. They want to use modified Viridian technology to establish monitoring systems throughout nearby star systems." "Early warning networks make sense after what happened," Imani pointed out. "These aren't just passive scanners," Quinn countered. "They're talking about autonomous weapons platforms with first strike capabilities, and there's more Project Eclipse. I don't have clearance to access the files, but I've heard whispers. They're doing something with Viridian biology, something big." As Imani left the facility, her mind raced. 2 years of peace, if one could call a militarized society at perpetual high alert peaceful, had changed humanity's priorities. The fear of extinction had hardened into something colder, more calculated. Her apartment in the officers' quarter was modest but comfortable, another privilege of her position. As she entered, she noticed immediately that something was wrong. The air felt disturbed, as though someone had recently departed. A quick scan revealed nothing obviously missing, but her instincts from resistance fighting hadn't dulled. Someone had been there. Moving methodically through the rooms, she found it, a small data crystal hidden inside a decorative piece she'd brought from her hometown, one of the few personal items she'd salvaged after the war. The crystal contained a single message, its source untraceable. The Viridians weren't the real enemy. Meet at Old Memorial 200 hours. Old Memorial was what locals called the ruins of pre-war Santiago's Central Plaza. Unlike most destroyed areas, it had been preserved as a reminder rather than rebuilt, a scar deliberately left visible. Imani approached cautiously at the appointed time, her military training and resistance experience combining to make her virtually invisible in the shadows. She wasn't surprised when a figure emerged from behind a shattered column, but she was shocked to recognize Commander Talia Bishop. "You're supposed to be on Luna Base," Imani said, keeping her distance. "I was reassigned," Talia replied. Or more accurately sidelined, too many questions about our Viridian policy. Why contact me we've never even met? Because you fought with Dominic Reed in the Southern Resistance. Because you have access to intelligence division networks. And because your psych profile shows something increasingly rare, moral ambiguity in a world demanding absolute certainty. Talia explained that she'd been investigating discrepancies in the official narrative about the Viridian War. Too many classified operations, too many resources diverted to projects with deliberately obscured purposes. I believe Franklin and his inner circle are implementing something called the Echo Protocol, Talia continued. Not the weapon we used against the Viridians, something new, something worse. What could be worse than what we already did? Imani asked. Becoming exactly what we fought against. Talia handed her a secure data device. This contains evidence that the Defense Council is experimenting with Viridian central control technology, trying to create their own version of the collective consciousness. Imani's blood went cold. For what purpose? Control, unity, perfect coordination of humanity's expansion into space. Talia's voice hardened. They're calling it preventative evolution, guiding humanity toward a form that can survive in a hostile universe. Over the following weeks, Imani used her security clearance to access restricted areas of the intelligence network, carefully gathering fragments of information about Project Eclipse. What she discovered confirmed Talia's worst fears and revealed something even more disturbing. Project Eclipse wasn't just studying Viridian technology, it was actively integrating it with human subjects. Volunteers at first, then prisoners, then selected individuals whose selection criteria were conspicuously absent from the records. The breakthrough came when Imani managed to access Dr. Quinn's security permissions to enter a restricted area of the Mars Containment Facility's database. There, she found surveillance footage of Archon Korath being subjected to procedures that extracted neurological patterns from his crystalline structure. More disturbingly, she discovered records showing that after these procedures, test subjects demonstrated limited abilities to influence others' thoughts, crude at first, but growing more sophisticated with each iteration. When she brought this evidence to Talia, the commander's expression darkened. They're not just studying the enemy, Talia concluded. They're becoming them, using their methods, their technology, even their philosophy. How do we stop it? Imani asked. We need to expose it first. Show people what's happening before these changes become too entrenched to reverse. Their opportunity came with the announcement of the unification ceremony, a global event marking the formal transition from emergency military governance to the New Earth Defense Protectorate. General Franklin would be named Supreme Protector, with expanded powers to secure humanity's future among the stars. Talia and Imani developed a desperate plan. Using Imani's access and Quinn's technical expertise, they would hijack the global broadcast system during Franklin's address, replacing it with evidence of Project Eclipse and the true nature of the Echo Protocol. The day of the ceremony arrived with unprecedented security measures blanketing New Santiago. Imani navigated through checkpoints using her credentials, carrying specialized equipment disguised as standard military gear. Meanwhile, Talia infiltrated the broadcast center with Quinn's assistance. As Franklin began his address, speaking of humanity's strength and resolve, Imani positioned herself near the primary communication hub. The timing had to be perfect, too early and security would stop the transmission, too late and Franklin's new authority would be cemented. Today marks not an ending but a beginning, Franklin declared to billions watching worldwide. The beginning of humanity's ascension from vulnerable species to galactic power. The stars once threatened us, now they will be our domain. Imani initiated the sequence, feeling a moment of vertigo as Quinn's technology interfaced with the broadcast network. For a terrifying second, nothing happened. Then Franklin's image flickered and was replaced by laboratory footage showing human subjects undergoing Viridian integration procedures. Talia's voice overlaid the disturbing images. This is what victory has made us. Not defenders of humanity, but its transformers. Not protectors of our nature, but engineers redesigning it without consent. The transmission continued for nearly 5 minutes before security forces managed to terminate it. By then, it was too late. The evidence had been seen globally and transmitted to off-world colonies. The damage to Franklin's carefully constructed narrative was irreparable. The aftermath was chaos. Public demonstrations erupted across Earth and its colonies. Military units split, with some remaining loyal to Franklin while others demanded investigations. The fragile unified government threatened to splinter just as it was being formalized. Imani barely escaped the security lockdown, making her way to a predetermined rendezvous point where Talia waited with an unmarked shuttle. "Where to now?" Imani asked as they lifted off, evading pursuit craft. "Europa Station," Talia replied. "There's a growing coalition there, scientists, military officers, civilians, who believe we need to find a different path forward, one that doesn't require becoming monsters to fight monsters." As Earth receded behind them, Imani watched the night side of the planet glittering with artificial light. Humanity had survived the Viridian threat, but the victory had come with a price neither of them had anticipated, a fundamental question about what it meant to remain human in a post-invasion world. "Do you think we can change course?" Imani asked quietly. "After everything that's happened, everything we've done." Talia's expression was solemn but determined. "The Viridians feared us because of our capacity for transformation. Franklin wants to direct that transformation toward control and military power, but that same capacity gives us choice, the ability to examine our path and change it." Their shuttle accelerated toward the outer planets, carrying with it the hope that humanity might still choose a future different from the one the Viridians had feared, not by becoming less dangerous, but by channeling that dangerous potential toward creation rather than domination. Behind them, Earth continued its evolution, forever changed by contact with an alien mind. Ahead lay uncertainty, resistance, and the faint possibility of redemption. The war had ended 2 years ago, but the battle for humanity's soul was just beginning. In the vast emptiness between worlds, Archon Korath's words echoed, "We attacked because we feared what you might become." The question that would define the coming struggle was elegantly simple: what would humanity choose to become?